Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. It's Monday morning. It's a beautiful summer's morning, gentle breeze coming in from the west. We've got a sunrise in about 20 minutes, and we've got a cruise ship, the Pacific Adventure, just coming into the harbour now. And today for me is a very sad day because it's the day before my Auntie Angela's funeral, and tonight I'll be going to the viewing. And my Auntie Angela is on her journey, her spiritual journey now, to eternity. And as you can see, at the front of that ship is a tugboat that accompanies that ship through the harbour here to ensure its safe entry and safe travel. So too, our spirits, when we pass away, are accompanied by their guardian angel on their journey for the first 40 days. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about a religious topic today, even though yesterday I did initiate and commenced a new series on my YouTube channel entitled My Greek Orthodox Odyssey, which is a series of videos whereby I will be translating the series of videos that a monk has put together, Yeron Nectarios in Greece, and his works are captured in the Greek language. And with my limited Greek, I'm going to take what he says and I'm going to translate it into English as best I can, to pass it on to those who have an interest in learning a little bit more about their faith, their religion, and to at least build a platform for those who have an interest. Today I'm going to go through and deliver a vlog on a book entitled The How of Happiness by an author named Sonja Lyubomirsky. And I can't quite remember how many books I've done on this particular topic of happiness. And it appears that the world, that humanity has an absolute obsession about being happy. And as I said, I just have forgotten how many books I've summarized or delivered summaries on the topic of happiness. But what we'll do today is we'll step through this material from this author of this book, The How of Happiness, and listen to what she has to say, and to try and incorporate any key life hack that she offers so that we can learn from it and use it in our daily quest for purpose, for fulfillment, for happiness, and hopefully create a better world for ourselves and an even better world for our children and the others who we share this world with. Because the bottom line is that our humanity is made up of our body, mind, and soul. We have those three key elements, and those three key elements working together, according to this author, determine the levels of happiness that we can enjoy. So the call to action from this author is A, to understand how happiness is generated, how happiness is created, so that we can make the most of it, generate the most of it in our life, and as we said before, to be the ripple, to be the pebble, to be the ripple, to be the tugboat, to help others to achieve happiness in their lives as well. So as you can see, it's an extremely low tide today, which has enabled that cruise ship to easily pass under the harbour bridge, and we're heading towards a full moon over the next couple of days, is my estimate based on the phasing of the moon at the moment. So let's get back to this author and see what we can glean, what we can learn from her writings. And she says something quite profound, something quite interesting, that nothing in life is as important as you think it is while you are thinking about it. There we go, there's the full moon, or the moon, which is, I guess, closing on full. And we'll see over the next couple of days when the full moon will be. So the author here is suggesting to us that nothing is really as important as we think it is, and we tend to overthink things in our lives and overemphasize elements of those things that we think about, and that overthinking and that overemphasis, depending on whether or not it is positive or negative, can have an impact on your worldview, can have an impact on the hormones that you generate and secrete into your blood system, and can have an impact on how you influence and connect and engage with others around you as well. So what this author here is saying is that we need to be smart in how we live our lives, so that we can shape our life, so that we can colour our life, so that we can shade our life and improve our life as best we can. So rather than be a victim of life, we are the author of life, as long of course as we do things that are God-pleasing, as opposed to indulging in the selfish desires. So once again, it's important to get the mix right. It's not all about us. It's not all about my own selfish desires, because we need to interact, we need to live with others, is a key point that the author makes. And it's a dance. It's a dance of to and fro, front and back, to various beats, to various drum rolls. So once again, it's important to get the mix right. I'll just go around to the side here and just continue to track the Pacific Adventure. It has a nice little logo on the back, like no place on earth. Interesting how they've put a spin on the fact that the ship is like no place on earth. But no two places on earth are the same, just like no two people on earth have ever been the same. Now, we've all had a different past. We're all going to experience a different now, a different present. I am here, you are there, and we're going to have a different perspective, not only today, but also based on the experiences that we have accumulated over our lifetime, and we're all going to have a different future as well. So what else can we learn from this author, given that we are at this most magnificent vantage point here on Sydney Harbour? We're going to have a brilliant sunrise. It's going to be a gorgeous day, and we're going to have a shipload of tourists who are going to be enjoying the fruits of this city today as well. So the first formal point to come from this author is where she says that, interestingly enough, our genetic makeup plays a huge role in our happiness levels, or our potential to be happy. It's important to say that it has an impact on our potential to be happy rather than on our happiness levels. But genes, according to this author, play a massive role in our optimism levels, but also our thoughts can make or break our happiness. So there's a number of moving parts, according to this author, when it comes to happiness that we need to be aware of, and it is based and influenced by our genes. So it's based and influenced on the things that we inherit, the physical things that we inherit from our parents and grandparents and families. And it's also influenced by the thoughts that we have, and once again the thought processes that we enjoy can also be either created by ourselves or inherited from members of our families or our communities or our schools. So there's a few things, there's a few moving parts, and we all have different mixtures of these ingredients. We've got different mixtures of the genes, we've got different mixtures of our thought patterns, and we have different mixtures of the patterns and compounding thoughts and experiences that we've enjoyed throughout our lives. So all of those things, when they're mixed together, when they're tuned together, can deliver a different outcome, I guess, is the key point that the author is making. So in a nutshell, our genetic makeup creates a baseline for our happiness, and believe it or not, our DNA determines whether we're going to be more likely to be positive or more likely to be negative, as well as whether or not we're going to be more likely to be an extrovert, an introvert, or somewhere in between. So all of these things, all of these moving parts, in a nutshell, from what this author is saying, all play a role in terms of how likely or unlikely we are to be happy, fulfilled and satisfied in our lives. But the good news is, if you're missing some of those elements, you can more than make up for it in other ways by shaping the thoughts that you have, by using OPE, other people's experiences, to generate a better outcome in your life and to gain fulfillment and satisfaction. So if you work hard, if you understand the moving parts, if you understand yourself, if you have a level of awareness, then you're going to be in a better position to achieve certain amounts of happiness. If you choose to, if you want to, So once again, it's important to understand that this is available to each and every person, and everybody has the ability to be happy, to be satisfied, and to experience joy in the world. So the genetic elements of our makeup come from our parents, and they're passed to us, and they are tendencies. Once again, it's not a black and white rule that if your genetic makeup that comes from your parents isn't positive or isn't happiness prone. And I guess what we find as well throughout our lives is that there are certain cultures, there are certain environments that are more happiness prone. I remember years ago travelling to Amsterdam with my wife Paula when I was working at IBM. We travelled there for business, and Paula was able to travel with me back in the days when employers did walk the talk when it came to work-life balance and respected the family unit, the husband and wife, and the importance of them being together when travelling for business in certain circumstances. And I remember saying to myself, it's amazing how happy the Dutch people are. It just stood out. It was just so evident that, we get on a bus or we get in a taxi and people will be chatting to each other, and there was lots and lots of laughter. Whereas, you come back to Australia and things are a little bit different. It's a different type of happiness, I guess, and culturally and nationally. Different countries, different families, different religions have different elements or ways of expressing that happiness and joy. But what we've learnt through science is that a person's happiness, a person's demeanour, a person's tendency also influences that person not only on a mental scale, but also on a physical scale as well. Because your genetic makeup also influences the hormones that are secreted into your bloodstream. Our dopamine levels of secretion can be connected to our genetic makeup. If your genetic makeup is such that you have pleasure hormones, surging into your bloodstream freely, or if you've got a genetic makeup which allows cortisol, which is a stress hormone, to surge into your bloodstream freely, then that's going to tip, it's going to shape, it's going to alter your ability to enjoy happiness. Because if you've got lots and lots of cortisol secreting into your body and you're stressed, then you're not going to be as happy as those people who have heaps and heaps of dopamine and other relaxing hormones pouring into their bloodstreams as well. So what we're saying here is that you can either have a genetic tendency or be prone to happiness by the way your body reacts to certain things that happens in your life, but you can also be prone to happiness by the thoughts that you inherit from your family, your culture, your religion, and those around you, or the way you see the world, the way you shape your thoughts, the way you capture things, the way you interpret things. So all of those things work together to impact your mind, body and spirit, according to this author. And as we are all very, very different, we have different combinations of these elements in our bodies, in our lives, based on the people we hang out with, based on our genetic makeup, and based on the things that we've worked on. So if you've been brought up in a happy family, a happy environment, a happy culture, and your genes support that, then you're going to be more prone to happiness, if you know what I mean. So that's the theory behind it that this author has put forward. But as we mentioned, regardless of your genetic makeup, the clincher, the real key point is that the thoughts that you have, the thoughts that you harbour, the thoughts that you generate are the ultimate element, the ultimate ingredient in terms of determining your level of happiness. And that's easy because you can shape your thoughts. You can decide on how to interpret what is going on in the world around you, and to ensure that you reward yourself and live with positive expectancy wherever you can. So what else can we glean from this author? So as we said, in summary, thoughts and hormones affect our outlook on life, and just like negative thoughts stimulate and release cortisol and those unhappy creating hormones, other thoughts that you have and harbour can shape different outcomes in your daily life. So we've got positive hormones that come from positive thoughts, and we've got negative hormones that come from negative thoughts. The choice is yours at the end of the day. But what we've got to understand is that the more negativity we have in our lives, then chances are that we're going to increase our stress levels, increase our cortisol secretion, and increase our levels of unhappiness. So you can intervene and change your thoughts, which in turn can change your stress levels and change, where possible, the hormones that your body secretes and pours into your bloodstream, knowing very well that when we get angry, it takes about a half hour for those hormones that have poured into our body to be neutralized. So just understand, be aware that we live in lag time, and sometimes we need to wait for our stress levels to dissipate to enable to swap them out with happiness levels. So it just doesn't happen immediately and quickly. It does take a little while. The author then goes on to say that there are certain practices that can make you happier, and science can prove that and has proved that. Happiness starts with you. It's important to understand that everything starts and can be controlled by you, as long as what you're doing is God pleasing, what you're doing is of service to others. You too can enjoy an abundance of happiness and joy in your life, because it all starts with you, and you can control a lot of it along the way. It's internal. It's all about learning to be grateful, and having gratitude in your life, because the more grateful one tends to be, the more happier they tend to be as well. So the call to action from this author is, where possible, to practice gratitude. Appreciate what you have as opposed to worry about what you don't have, is the key message that comes from this book. So a lot of people tend to focus on what they don't have. A lot of people tend to focus on their past. A lot of people tend to focus on their future. But what the author here suggests is that we need to be present. We need to be here and now, and to understand that the past has gone. You can't change the past. You can only change your interpretation of the past. And once again, that is in your power, to look at what's happened in your past and rejig your interpretation of what has happened, and try and shape it in a positive way to help you get through it, and not allow it to hold the key to your prison, to your happiness prison, or your sadness prison. So I remember reading from another author that people who spend too much time in the past tend to be depressed and upset and unhappy because of that depression, whereas people who spend too much time in the future are anxious and are worried and miss out on the now because they're too busy preparing or worrying about what may happen tomorrow, which generally won't happen. A lot of people worry about things unnecessarily. It's important to understand that statistically, 85% or more, 90%, 95%, 99% of the things that you worry about will never happen. We tend, as we said before at the beginning of this vlog, to overthink things, to worry about things that may not happen, that worry about things that may be not true, to overemphasize the negatives. So once again, it's important to understand that these things are playing in the background in everybody's lives, and if you focus too much on the negative, if you worry too much about the past, if you live too much in the future, then you're going to be missing out on the opportunities that are constantly presenting themselves to you that you're blinded to because of the scotomas of the past and the scotomas of the future, because you're distracted, you're forever distracted. So let me just put the bag down here and just see what else we can learn from this book and this author. So we need to be grateful for what we have, to practice gratitude, and not to overdo it as well. If you overdo things, if you overthink things, then that in itself is going to tire you out, and it's going to drain you of your energy to get things done in your life. Let's have a look for a moment at the scientific ways that we can consider and incorporate into our lives to hopefully generate a little bit more happiness and peace. So what we're saying is that each and every person is made up differently to any other person. The combination, the configuration of genes, of experiences, of inheritance that each person has is entirely different. There will never ever be another me. There will never ever be another you. Even identical twins have a different configuration of different elements because God gives people different gifts in different proportions. Even identical siblings have God's gifts allocated to them in different proportions and different amounts. So each person has to first identify what gifts they have, and to work those gifts depending on the volume of those gifts, work them in a way with the other gifts that they have and with the gifts of other people around them, so that they can generate the best outcome for themselves and their communities and the people around them. So we need self-awareness. We need to understand what we're good at, and we need to work those gifts to express our calling. Each person has a different calling or callings. So once again, each person has a different path to take, and each path that each person takes will take them to a different place. Just because it didn't work for your parent, just because it didn't work for your uncle, your grandparents, your classmates, doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you. Because we need to understand that each person also has a different fate. If it didn't work for you once, then you may want to try doing it again using a different approach. And you'll get to a point where you realise whether or not your fate is to get a certain outcome or to move on to do something else. So life is fairly complicated for everybody, and we need a combination of genetics, circumstances and experiences in order to achieve the different outcomes that are available for different people. The last point that the author makes is that whilst we are on our course to enjoying our life, what we may want to do along the way is to physically exercise on a daily basis. That seems to be a common element that this author talks about in terms of helping us be better at doing what we're doing. So physical exercise is one thing that will improve our level of happiness. Meditation and prayer is another thing. Living with positive expectancy, and living a spiritual life is key. I remember just the other day doing a vlog from Elder Nectarios, where he says that we are spiritual beings, and if you're living a life without spirituality in it, then guess what? You are no different from an animal that doesn't have a spiritual life. An animal that has, yes, it has a soul, but it doesn't have a rational soul. So, we are called to improve, to expand our spiritual side, and to not become and stay as spiritual pygmies or spiritual bonsai plants, but to grow in our spirituality throughout our life in order to fully express and fully enjoy the gift of humanity, the special gift that we all have of being top of the animal kingdom. The other point that the author makes is that we need to engage in spiritual and religious observance because we are wired. Human beings are wired and made for faith. Our purpose in the world is very, very simple according to the Bible. Our purpose is to serve God, to worship God with all our heart, mind and soul, and also to love one another as we love ourselves. And there's a little secret message there. In order to love others, in order to love our neighbours, we do need to love ourselves. And if you don't love yourself to a certain point, then your cup can't overfilleth, and you can't be generous with your love to others. So we need to learn to love ourselves. We need to learn to love others, to express that love freely and openly and unconditionally, and also to invest in ourselves, because the better that we become, the bigger and better that we become, then the more value we can offer and add to our families, our communities, and all of those around us. So it's a dance, it's a balance, it's a tricky question we need to do for ourselves in order to be in a position to do for others. But it's a beautiful message. And the last point here is that we need to improve our relationships. We need to improve our relationships, as we mentioned before, with ourselves, but also to improve our relationships and be connected to those around us. We need to be engaged, we need to be connected, and we need to feel that we belong, and we also need to ensure that we help others feel that they belong as well. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I'm just making my way round to Barangaroo, where I'll be working today, and it's going to be an absolute cracker, a magnificent summer's day. I look forward to coming to you again from a different place with a different message of empowerment, where we can take OPE, other people's experiences, in the form of book summaries, in the form of vlogs, lectures, and personal experiences, and pass them on, learn about them, think about them, engage with them, and pass them on to each other, so that we can use the different slithers of reality that different people have been able to come up with, and to use them as part of the stepping stones, part of the path, part of the road, a bridge to help us cross over problems that we haven't experienced before. But using other people's experience, we can use those experiences to make our lives more productive and better. So until next time, wishing you all the best. Happy Monday to everybody, and Galo Paradiso to my Auntie Angela, who is on her journey now, as I mentioned earlier. God bless her, and may God remember her in the second coming, to have her by his side, and between now and then to offer her through his grace all the protection and all the oneness that is possible based on her life, and to grant her a foretaste of paradise everlasting. Anyway, take care everybody, yasas, and bye for now.